Welcome to Trek Central Weekly. I'm your host, Commander Dom, and I am here with my illustrious guests, Textrek. Textrek, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm trying to recover from Star Trek Las Vegas and also from COVID, but
Yes.
all things considered, I'm great.
Yeah, so we wish you a very speedy recovery with that, and we very much appreciate that you're here, even though you are testing positive, but we are happy to have you here. And we are also joined by Sohail, also known as Starfleet Boy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I am so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to talk to you guys about Star Trek. I brought my handy dandy sentient computer with me to help me make some decisions. And so here you go.
Your co-leader, right?
My co-leader. Yeah,
Yes,
there it
co-leader. And
is.
talking of co-leaders, we have a lot to discuss this week in Trek Central Weekly. We not only have Star Trek Las Vegas, which happened last weekend, I believe, but because we weren't here last week due to me being gallivanting around the quadrant and Jack going to some Daystrom Institute symposium, I don't know. We were not here last week, so we have two episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks to talk about. Episode 1, which I believe was called Grounded for Season 3, and Episode 2, The Least Dangerous Game. But not only do we have the return of Trek to our screens, we have a lot to look forward to in the future with Star Trek Day coming upon us in only 4 days, where we have panels from basically every single show, from Discovery, Picard, I think Prodigy also has, as well as Lower Decks, and Strange New Worlds. And who knows, maybe there'll be some surprise announcements. So before we get ahead of ourselves and talk about Star Trek Day, we should talk about Star Trek Las Vegas. Also, welcome everyone in the chat for joining us. If there are any issues with the audio or anything, just let us know and I'll make sure to fix some things behind the scenes. But as we should start, Favre, do you want to tell us about what Star Trek Las Vegas was like this year, and if we got any interesting news from the con this year?
Sure. I mean, it was a very weird experience this year. It was just the strangest Star Trek Las Vegas. You know, it was a different building than it's normally in. A lot of things were very disorganized, but it was still a lot of fun. And yeah, I was surprised. You know, some of the tidbits of information that came out during the panels and stuff. I was surprised at some of the things that made like the most waves online, like the Terry Farrell one particularly caught me off guard, where she said,
Oh
"Yeah, it'd
yeah.
be no big deal to bring Jadzia back to life." Like, I was surprised to see like people like running with like that
Yeah,
headline.
there was
Like,
also some interesting tweets I saw about that, being like, oh, we shouldn't bring Jadzia back because then death is meaningless. Um, but, I mean, what are your
well,
thoughts on if
characters
we
coming back
bring
to life.
Jadzia back to life?
There's like so
Uh,
many ways you can do it that I
Mm,
think that they could come up with a clever thing. I mean, you could even go like time travel and have the two Daxes, the three Daxes, like, pull a device from Doctor Who, and like all the
Yeah,
other Daxes have their memory erased and they get sent back to their times or whatever. So I don't know. There's a lot of cool things that I could think of. So I don't have a problem with it. And then like you said, like some folks are saying that it says that death is meaningless, and I get that. Like, there is a lot of the fact that there's still people tweeting about how much they love Jadzia and how much that death, which it affected me when it happened, occurs. Like, there is a lot associated with that, like on a personal level. But when characters come back to life, like especially in science fiction, especially in Star Trek, I always give it a much wider berth in terms of suspension of disbelief than I do for maybe a more Earth-based current show.
mm. Yeah, and Favre, what are your thoughts on Jadzia maybe coming back? I mean, it's just uh, the actress Terry Farrell saying that she would like to come back, but what are your
right. I
thoughts?
mean, I feel like that's like a obvious true thing for any dead character. You know,
Mm.
it's pretty easy to write an excuse for any of them to come back to life. Just ask Spock or Dr. Colbert or Picard
or
or
Shax.
Shax.
I mean, I guess you could then go into like Harry Kim and all the like
Yeah.
characters who
Oh,
are
O'Brien?
not.
Isn't O'Brien like, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, O'Brien died and then got replaced by his self from a different timeline.
yeah.
But speaking of Harry Kim and Voyager, though, the coolest thing that I think came out of Star Trek Las Vegas, at least for me, was Robert Beltran actually answered the Tuvix dilemma. He gave I think what we could consider the definitive final answer on what was the right or wrong thing
I mean,
for
it
Captain
won't be the
Janeway to
final
do.
answer, considering it's still been a
I thought it
very
was a
big
good one.
fan thing to talk about. But yes, carry on.
But yeah, he said
Tom's
that
passionate about Tuvix.
Janeway should have killed all three of them. She should have killed Tuvix and then also went ahead and killed Tuvok and Neelix because, as Robert Beltran described it, the only people on our show that ever did anything important were the Captain, Seven of Nine, and the Doctor, so they might as well just kill all the rest of us.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Expendable. Except those characters.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of Jadzia, I think, there's definitely a lot of stories you can tell, and saying that that's the end and it would cheapen death, I think more goes from just a lack of imagination to how it could be done, I might say. Because there are infinite ways it can be done, and there are probably an infinite number of ways which it can be done well. Whether it might be done well or not is another issue to discuss. But I think that, if Terry Farrell wants to come back, whether it be through a Trill ceremony system or temporal stuff, you have all these options. So
the ghosts,
they
see their doesn't Ezri see her past selves? Like, she could come back as
and it doesn't need to be, she comes back as like a full character in a show. It could just be a cameo of, this is a hologram of Jadzia Dax, who is seen in Lower Decks because Tendi actually mentions that, I'm going to be like Jadzia Dax, I believe, in season 2.
Like,
so you could definitely have them return like that. We also have some interesting things in the chat from Joel, who says the koala brings them back, which is definitely interesting. Though, talking of the koala, so you know how at the beginning of each Star Trek episode now we have the Star Trek universe, like little introduction cinematic, kind of like how Marvel does their comic book cinematic.
It
seems
the franchise
that,
logo.
Yeah, it seems that we're going to get a personalized one for each series going forwards. With Strange New Worlds, we had the Enterprise flying to make the Star Trek universe symbol. But now we have the Cerritos flying around, and in the background you can see the koala in some of the like gaseous anomalies, which I think is really cool.
I love that opener, and I was very pleased to see the customization of putting the Cerritos in, and I hope that continues. So, like, if they weren't going to do it already, go and change them now and put a protostar on for the
I'm sure they're going to do that. And then one with the Discovery for Discovery. But the question I have is, what ship do you use in Picard?
Well,
because they have options.
Probably
there.
La Sirena, because it's the most important ship in Picard.
But are we even going to see that ship again in season 3?
Well, that's the question.
I think it's gone.
But so far, it's there.
I think that if we start out the season with La Sirena, and then if there's happens to be some kind of hero ship reveal, they can update it midway through the season, or whenever the hero ship reveal, if that such a thing would happen, then they update it to that hero ship, and then that's kind of a cool thing they could do as well. But I agree with Dom Father that La Sirena does deserve the honor just because she's like got the most screen time, I guess. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, of all those ships. I mean, just season 1 has numerous La Sirena, whereas season 2 has very little ships apart from the first episode and the last episode. And La Sirena is throughout the episode. Throughout the season.
They spend a lot of time inside of La Sirena in season 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad if it were Stargazer.
Yes.
Like,
Though I think that goes into a bigger discussion of, will we see the Stargazer and will it be a different ship? All these questions, which I'm sure hopefully will be asked at Star Trek Day. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, was there any other news at Star Trek Las Vegas, Favre?
I mean, speaking of Picard, the Tasha Yar thing, Denise Crosby confirmed that you will see Tasha somehow in season 3, but it sounds like it's not going to be like Denise Crosby as Tasha Yar back alive and well. I think it might be something like like the little hologram of her that they had at her funeral on Next Generation, or something like that. Some type of image of her, but not specifically her.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and
We'll find out.
Doesn't that also appear in Measure of a Man?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, Data kept the keepsake.
Yeah, so it could just be that, but maybe there's an extra message that Tasha put on it, which now we find out, and it's like, oh, this is what I would look like if I was still alive. Or something like that.
It'd be,
but it definitely seems that it'll be a small
yeah.
cameo, because I think from when we wrote the script for the video, and if anyone is interested, you can go and watch that video on the Trek Central channel. I believe that originally, a couple of months ago, Denise Crosby said that she wasn't going to be in season 3. Now, obviously, actors lie and creatives lie all the time about their shows. But it might be that it's something that was added in post, and something that she might have either voiced or filmed after the initial filming of the season was done. So it might just be a small thing, but it's still great that we get a continuation of Tasha Yar, considering her kind of disappointing death in TNG. So yeah.
And also, I just think if you're, this is very much being touted as a send-off season. And so I don't mind that kind of fan service, like where you bring back, I mean, Tasha, she did have a disappointing death, but like, to me, the thing that stands out the most about her character is the yesterday's Enterprise reappearance. Yes. And like, I think Denise Crosby, like by that time, approached the role like in a different way and just like gave it a lot of amazing, effort in her performance, and it really like is one of the shining factors. And then that leads to this whole crazy thing with Sela, so we get a lot of Denise Crosby coming back and again setting up the stage for like, or the idea, which is not a new idea that Star Trek did, but just your favorite actors coming back in the same series playing different roles. It's a fun thing. Yes. We Jeffrey Combs does it, and like a lot of other folks, but
yeah definitely. And I think that's an interesting point that you talk about how Denise really went at the character in a different way for yesterday's Enterprise. Not a completely different way, but just a different way to play as Tasha Yar. And it brings about this question about how would Tasha have developed as a character, and how would Denise have changed how she plays Tasha Yar if Tasha Yar was still around in season 2, season 3, carry on. So that's a very interesting thing to think about. But in what capacity the character might return in season 3 is only theory crafting from us.
Yes.
But who knows, we might learn some more in just 4 days' time at Star Trek Day. So, because we've got a lot of stuff to talk about in this stream, how about we move on to Star Trek Lower Decks? With its return and these first 2 episodes. So with Grounded, I just want to know your initial thoughts on this season premiere. So Starfleet Boy, we'll start with you.
Thanks. I was super excited. I was when it premiered. Of course, I was. I had a lot of anticipation, and I was expecting to see the Pakled Planet plot wrap up, which it did, but not in the way that I thought. And I was actually, quite delighted by the way it did all turn out. But overall, it was just it was like I think I described it as my favorite episode of Lower Deck so far, and it's still holding that status because even though I love episode 2, I feel like this premiere for season 3 was just so powerful in the sense that like if you're a fan of the show, if you watch the show, if you're like kind of like following all their little tropes that they do and things like that, like that season 3 opener kind of delivered a lot of like payoffs, if you will, from things that we've been seeing over the last 2 seasons, and we can maybe get into some of those. But yeah, overall, I was just like so happy and astonished, and I found myself laughing at the gags so much, like just Boimler's never crossing his mind that his logs were embarrassing in any way, like insisting that this was the solution, and then we hear that he's having trouble passing gas and things like that. It's like, just there's just so many wild goofy gags, but the show somehow rides the line so well of like never going too far out, for me anyways, too far out of the realm of believability as far as what's going on like in Star Trek. Like to me it's exactly like quote unquote canon. Like it's like, yes, I accept it all. Like there's no need to like do any kind of hoops or anything like that for me personally. But yeah, I love it. I love this show, and I'm glad it's back, and that first episode was awesome.
Yeah. Favre, what were your thoughts of the first episode?
It was a tribute to Star Trek 3 in a lot of ways, my personal favorite Star Trek movie, and I know I'm weird for that being my favorite, but it is. So, so yeah, of course. So I liked it. Also, a lot of Deep Space Nine love, some First Contact love. So like all of my favorite parts of Star Trek all being represented on Lower Decks, which is also kind of one of my favorite parts of Star Trek. So that was fun. They have the whole episode, just like the big gag, the big punchline was that like it was all so pointless. They didn't have to do any of that. They could have just stayed at Cisco's Creole kitchen eating gumbo and not had to worry about anything, and it all would have been fine. But that was the payoff at the end. That was kind of the point of it. As a result, the episode doesn't really have much in the way of consequence. It's definitely a big hit the reset button and reset everything. The entire status quo is mostly the same at the end of this episode as it was in season 2. However, they set up some of what we can assume will be Mariner's big arc for the season with her and Ransom, where she's kind of like, she's on probation. She's got like one last chance. If she screws up again, then she's going to be off the ship. So we'll see where that leads to. And then, we get some more of that in after Grounded in The Least Dangerous Game. But yeah, and the season 2 premiere kind of did the same thing. They had like Boimler off on the Titan, but they brought him back pretty quickly. So that's kind of the gimmick, I guess, for these cliffhanger endings. But that is kind of the tradition of those Next Generation season finale cliffhangers. So
yeah, very much. And yeah, in terms of me, yeah, I think I mirror some of those thoughts. I really liked the episode, but it very quickly returned us to the status quo, even more so than like you said, season 2, with at least we got some episodes of Boimler on the Titan. We got very much just an exposition dump of what went down on Packard Planet, and these upper deckers, including Captain Bateson, which was a nice touch.
Nice cameo.
Yeah, who went on a mission to Romulan neutral zone to find a forger, and Tuvok, and that. I'm blanking on the species which he mind melded, the one that plays Stratagema.
Begins with a Z. Not Zardon.
Well, if someone in chat knows that, let us know. But yeah, we got some of them. We got Tuvok. But it was very much just a like like a slideshow of, okay, this is what went down. There you go. Problem solved, solution done.
We also learned.
So, yeah.
We also learned that the Pack-Lad's whole thing was a gigantic Samaritan snare, because the whole reason they wanted to like blow up Pack-Lad's big strong city was so that they could get relocated to a planet with better resources. So it's like...
Yeah, but it is interesting considering that when we saw Packlet Planet, it was very gold. Their cities were gold, so I guess they just stripped their planet of all the good resources to make their cities, and then we're like, oh, okay, we've got no more resources left. Let's blow up our planet and get some evacuation to a new planet. Whether
it sounds so horribly familiar, unfortunately. I'm like laughing because like, oh, maybe humans might be Pac-Led someday. Like, we're not gonna end up being what we think. We're gonna be Pac-Led.
Who is out there to ship us to a new planet? That's the big question.
That is the big question.
But yeah, and then I guess you've then got to think, will Starfleet still move them to another planet? Is their plan still going to make sense? Because Starfleet is just like, well, we started, we can't just leave you to your own devices. In which case, then they succeeded in doing that. But then I guess why would they go to all the effort to frame a Starfleet captain to blowing up their planet instead of just being like, oh, there was an industrial accident? They could, well, but it's the Pac-Leds.
It's true. Right.
But they're also now fixated on Janeway.
Yeah.
Like whoever they think Janeway is. Like...
I think it would have been nice if they were trying to frame Janeway, and they got the video duplicator to put in Freeman because they thought Freeman was Janeway. So like, ha ha ha, we'll get a new planet and we'll take down Janeway. That'll show them. And then it's just Freeman. I think that would have been cool.
That would have been great.
Apart from that, there were some really nice things in the episode, like First Contact Day theme park in Bozeman, Montana. You got to... It does pose the question of, so are warp-capable vessels just like theme park rides now?
I think that's how a lot of regular folks get their first warp experience. Like, at least that's what they're presenting it as.
It's very like low level warp, right?
Yes.
Like they're not like going fast enough to like leave the solar system. They're just like traveling at like warp 1, just like barely faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
From the narration of the Cochrane hologram, it looks like what it does is exactly like it just warps out a little, turns around, and he goes, and then because he says something like, and there you have it, the beautiful like that bluish
blue marble,
that bluish marble Earth. So like I think that's like how it would have gone down.
Yeah, so I guess like, it would have been the same path as the Phoenix and would have went to just outside the solar system. So probably wait, where does in First Contact, where does it go? Does it just go to like Jupiter?
They don't say.
They don't say, but they go far enough out.
Right, like I mean, if at warp 1, it would take you, a while to get to the edge of the solar system.
Yeah.
Like how long does it take light to get to Pluto? That's like I don't know, 30 minutes or something. Like it's.
I know it takes 8 minutes from light to go from the sun to Earth.
To Earth, yeah.
And then it's how many AU is the solar system, which I can't remember.
It's possible they just went near for a moon run, basically. Then, because it wasn't a very long trip. Yeah, so.
This actually always bothers me in First Contact. When he's in the cockpit, you see like the warp effect of all the stars streaking out the window.
Yeah.
So that makes it look like he's going to like I don't know, like out past Alpha Centauri and back or something. Like he's going like past like several solar systems. He's going at like warp 5 or 6 or like hauling ass. So that's kind of a weird visualization. But I always just picture they were just zooming around the solar system, didn't get very far when the Vulcans detect them.
Yeah. And yeah, it was really nice that they added the like little details of, okay, Zefram Cochrane did put in rock music, or whatever music in the cockpit as he piloted. I guess we wouldn't have Riker and Geordi in the cockpit, but
that's true. Dom, the name for the bar, the Crash and Burn bar, I think. Was that already established in First Contact? Was it already called that, or is that like the first time we're getting the name?
Oh,
it was already called that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool! I didn't realize that because I hadn't had a chance to go watch and check, but And then I love that she says like the jukebox that plays only one song.
The one song
It's like
jukebox.
ooby dooby 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 dow. And then of course it's not the, what's the name of the ship? It's
What, Phoenix?
the Vulcan ship.
Oh, the Vulcan
No, the
ship.
Vulcan.
The Panahath.
The
Oh,
Taplana
yeah.
Hath. Thank you. Yeah, the Taplana Hath there. Probably not the original
It's,
Taplana Hath.
I mean,
but the
it's not the
swing-
right scale.
It's not the right scale.
So yeah.
In some shots though, like when they first show the Bozeman site, it does look at scale there, but I don't care about that
Oh.
stuff. It's like
The scaling is frequently off a little bit in lower
In
decks,
all
but
the
that's
Star-
nothing new
yeah.
to Star Trek. Just
Star Trek, right?
go watch anything that has the Defiant or a Bird of Prey in it, and the scale is going to be all over the place.
And
Yeah.
Mike McMahon once again inserts his kind of food of the week with churros, which I love. I love churros. I don't know if you guys have ever had churros,
Yes.
but they're
I had
delicious.
churros recently. They're very nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
on my way back from the airport, a dude was trying to get me to buy some churros for a moment at a red light out in the
Nice.
street.
Wow.
Oh, that's it. I forgot. That's right. It's street food too. So like it kind of fits the whole thing of like with the street corn and stuff like that. And yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yes. I forgot
love
about street corn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Every episode of Lower Decks, or at least every season, I come out really hungry whenever I start thinking about these like food plots. It's like
Well, let me change the subject before you get too hungry. But the Zephram Cochrane stuff, going back to that for just a second. We should mention that they got James Cromwell to come back and do some new dialogue as Cochrane, and then in The Least Dangerous Game, we also get a cameo and a legacy actor. So, are they going to do this every episode of season 3? Wouldn't that be
Oh.
something if there's like a cameo in every single episode?
That would actually be really cool.
that would be really cool. Yeah.
I think before we talk
and-
about The Least Dangerous Game, I do want to mention Denny, the transporter chief, because they
Yes.
were actually my favorite character in the first episode.
Instant favorite.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Denny.
Everyone loves Denny. Yeah, and I still don't really comprehend if it was all an act or it was him being sincere, because I think he could definitely take on all the lower deckers himself, but he just puts on this grandpa facade, and it's probably not even a facade, it's probably just him. But considering he's at this they let him be at this transporter facility by himself without any like guards or anything, probably speaks a lot to the capabilities of Denny.
I agree.
I love that
And-
respect that like this old Starfleet veteran is still kind of a badass, even just like the unimportant transporter
Yeah.
chief.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, is there anything else you want to mention about Grounded? Because there was a lot.
Well,
in that
he's
episode.
also a buffer buff with all the the vintage transporters.
I-
Have, like, a little
that
museum
terminology
with a
cracked me up. Buffer buff.
What I would have really liked seen there is also the lateral vector transporters on the Shenzhou, with the
yeah.
circular dish on the side, because that's kind of the only like named type of transporter we really have in like the development of the transporter. So it would have been nice to see that, but it is what it is.
And I did have one other thing on Grounded that I just remembered. But we were talking about Star Trek Las Vegas earlier. Tim Russ did not know that he was in Lower Decks. Someone actually told him. He was on stage doing a panel, and someone like asked him a question if he knew about that, and he said that he had actually talked to Mike McMahon and told him, "I would love to do some voice work for your animated show." And then they went and they just like drew him into the show. So he's like, I had no idea that I was in there. So I thought that was interesting.
Oh, bless.
I think they're setting it up for a future return of more characters.
Yeah, so
'cause-
was Tuvok there a commander? Or was he a captain? in rank? I
Oh, I
didn't
didn't get a
You
good
pay
look.
attention to
you
his
couldn't
rank.
see
Okay.
you couldn't see all of his collar, so we don't. So I think they said Commander Tuvok, but
Yes.
that could be referring to him as a lieutenant commander.
Yes.
Um,
But yeah.
he
Stuff.
is I do like that, like that is one thing about Grounded that I appreciated. Just two little notes. One is that we saw a lot more just regular folk, earthlings, so to speak. So there was like
Earthlings. Yes.
Gavin, there was like the reporter, there were like Gary, well, Gary and the other guy are in Starfleet, but you know, we saw just like a lot, we saw Cisco's just life on Earth, and I really
Yeah, we
appreciated that.
didn't see Boimler's family, and
Right, we didn't see his
I'm
family,
No.
salty about that.
but we did see that there's like, you know, like the, you know, of course the maidens, the the raisin
The
maidens
Raisin
or whatever,
Maidens.
you know, we get that. So there was a lot more of Earth life, and I really appreciated it. I enjoyed seeing that. San Francisco, like, I'm still not sure if that's you know, Admiral Freeman's office or if it's their a room in their home, but what a cool
I thought
view.
it
You know, there's just
seems
like
like
these
a
like
room in
things.
their
Yeah.
home because I think one of
Yeah.
the other admirals who Mariner calls uncle is like, why do you still keep breakable things in your house? I think that's what he said.
Gotcha. Oh,
Um,
cool. Okay, cool.
so yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, regardless, we just saw life on Earth, and it was cool. I liked it. I always like those moments in Deep Space Nine or TNG when you go to Earth and you just see like what regular folks are doing that are not in Starfleet, and so it was very cool.
Yeah, definitely. But yes, we also have another episode of Lower Decks to talk about, and that is episode 2
Yeah.
of season 3, The Least Dangerous Game. So this time I'll start off with Favre. Favre, what did you think of this interesting episode?
So I actually prefer this episode of the two. It's not as big and grandiose and flashy, but to me it kind of has more substance because what it does have here, it is something that does have consequence, and so that gives it a little bit more weight. But I particularly enjoyed both the setup of Boimler's season 3 arc of the bold Boimler. I'm very curious to see where that goes. I think that's a really cool device to do something you know, a little fresh and different with him, but still move his larger story arc for the entire show along, and it's going to create scenarios for really good humor, I think, you know, as demonstrated here with Cranch. And then while he's learning to, you know, to be more bold, Mariner is going to be doing kind of the opposite and having to learn restraint. And so the dynamic between her and Ransom that they set up in the previous episode, you kind of get to see the example of it in action here. So I enjoyed that as well. I liked the two different plots. I think that they balanced each other out pretty well. And yeah, I had a very good time with this one.
And Starfleet Boy.
Same thing. I thought it was great. I still like the opener a little bit more, but overall, I mean, it's like pretty much neck and neck. In this episode, I really enjoyed all the gags with both Mariner and Boimler, kind of trying to find their way into these new modes that they're trying out. Boimler, you know, the bold Boimler, and Mariner maybe checking out refrain and maybe even like a respective command perhaps, you know, and like exploring that and things like that. So yeah, it was just really funny. And you know, there's a couple scenes that just like stand out in my mind, but like the one that just like got me in this episode was when she originally she's gonna like go rogue again, and she jumps out of the suborbital lift, and she's like ready to go and save her friends, like, and then she picks up the call from Ransom, and he's saying that she was right and that he was wrong, and she's like, damn, like, she's like, so, and then she has to climb all the way back up, and she's just totally exhausted, and when they jump back down again, and she's just like asleep and snoozing and snoring, I lost it. I was like, this is the kind of stuff that Lower Decks just does so well. It's like this absurd stuff, but it's a realistic situation, and I just love it. It's like, it's so cool.
Is falling asleep while you're skydiving realistic? That's where I thought.
I mean,
they
it
went a little-
depends
I
how,
think if you're so tired, like the suggestion was that she passed out. Basically, her body just gave out. It was like, you're sleeping, I don't care what. And it's like that happens to me sometimes when I'm up late, just normal, like like where
Well,
I'm
hopefully not
fighting
while
the sleep.
skydiving, but.
No, but while watching Voyager, unfortunately. But it's like so I miss huge chunks of Voyager because I thought I was awake, but I definitely fell asleep for like a minute maybe or something.
I mean, I would also probably think that there is some sort of automation in those skydiving suits,
Oh yeah, yeah.
considering they, that whole sequence is a callback to 2009 and them skydiving from the onto the Narada drill, and that, as well as probably the it's not skydiving, but when they go through space with Khan in Into Darkness, that has some automation and telling you where you need to maneuver and all that stuff.
They might be calling it a free fall maneuver or something like that.
Yes.
Like...
Yes. But yeah, in terms of myself, if people have watched the Trek Central review on this episode, then I have put a lot of my words into that. But I will differ from both of you and say I did not actually like this episode. I still thought it was a good episode. It was just a fairly standard Lower Decks episode. And I think that says a lot, that this is still a good episode and it's just the standard Lower Decks. It shows how high the bar for this series is. But I felt that this episode was quite at conflict with itself in the fact that it was, especially with Boimler's sub-story, it was about getting out of your comfort zone and doing these things to get recognition in an episode which was very much in its comfort zone and doing the status quo and just back to where I think this episode could easily be in season 1. And that says a lot to me. And also, we've already even though it was for a different character, we've already kind of got Boimler's story in this episode in a previous episode with Rutherford and the I forgot the name of the episode, but the one with Billups' family and the historical reenacting people. That was very much a Rutherford, you need to learn how to get out of your comfort zone and do these extra things. And this was very much
giving
the
both
same.
of them the same
And
advice, yeah.
again, Tendy's giving both of them the same advice. And I think I would have much preferred, and I saw some mention in the chat from Tim Jerome, is that we kind of have to understand at this point that it's very much just Boimler and Mariner series instead of our whole crew of Boimler, Mariner, Tendi and Rutherford, because Tendi and Rutherford very much just take a back seat and are supporting characters in this episode. And we'll see how the rest of the series goes and whether they'll get more stuff. We do know from interviews with Noel Wells that I think episode 7 is a Tendi episode, so that'll be really cool and I'll look forward to that. But I just felt that this episode was just standard Lower Decks, and that is both a endorsement and a criticism for this episode. So yeah, that's what I thought of this episode. I will say I did really love Cranch. One really unfortunate name, but to get Nolan North, who has already done a lot of Lower Decks voices, including Chief Lundy, who is also in this episode.
Oh, he was Chief Lundy as well. That's right.
But to have this warrior hunter new race and yet still distinguish it from those we've seen previously in Trek, namely the Hirogen, and make them into something new and fresh and interesting. So, they hunt because they think life is sacred. They catch and release their prey, and they take pictures with their prey to be like, hey, I did this. I think that's really cool. And to also then see just his interactions with like the rest of the crew and specifically Captain Freeman, and being like, Captain Freeman's really chill with him. It's like, thank you for the mimosas. You're welcome. Go catch your prey.
Right.
That was really nice.
He's so polite.
He's so polite, and he was so polite at the end, and you just can't help but feel happy that he caught this he caught Boimler and impaled him with a spear, which is a weird thing to say. But apart from that, I just thought, and going with the Mariner stuff, I think it was just very, I don't really know what Mariner learnt from this episode, apart from maybe do trust in the system and trust in your subordinates. But that is very much what she learnt last episode, in episode 1.
I think she kind of goes backwards a little because that last interaction with Ransom, she's kind of trying to give the olive branch, so to speak, and by extending a compliment, and he just dismisses her, and he's like, and don't you think sucking up will get you, he kind of like dismisses her and then just kind of like brushes her off, and she leaves really pissed and storms off. So I think she was gonna have like it could, I don't know how it'll turn out for her.
We'll
she could
have
still
to
have
see.
it, but yeah, but I was a little worried after that. I was like, oh no, Mariner's gonna kind of not be trusting anymore. It's interesting. There's so many little things in this episode that I want to think are untidy on purpose. Like there's in the discussions I've been having about it. There's so many different takes folks are having. Like for example, with the wellness and the idea of what is a wellness, what kind of body represents wellness, like is it Ransom's body, and things like that. So that's been creating a lot of interesting discussions, like the Mariner kind of stuff with her, with her this season, she had a real breakthrough moment, like in the last episode when she breaks down and cries and kind of like confesses her anxiety over her mom and like all this stuff. So she's in a different place to me in terms of her vulnerability. And so I'm very curious how they're going to handle that. I hope they do go deeper and get a little bit more untidy, because like Lower Decks, rightfully so, has the the almost funny kind of tradition of just wrapping things up quickly and putting them in a nice little bow sometimes. But this season so far, I don't know, there's just an impression, but like there's some like untidy bits that are kind of interesting to me, and I wonder how they're going to continue to unravel those throughout the season.
I will say that the Mariner plot had my least favorite part of the episode. The thing that I had a kind of a struggle with was Ransom being so flippant about the situation Rutherford and Billips were in, and just like not seeming to take that very seriously, and delaying too long before he finally like caved into Mariner and was like, okay, let's go rescue them. I thought that was probably a little inappropriate for a command officer to be that just nonchalant about his crew being possibly executed in a volcano. He does admit that he was wrong, but I still have a hard time buying that. And the other thing that this episode got wrong, that I hate to point out, but they kept calling racquetball spring ball. Those were two different sports.
Yes. Yeah. They are. Yeah, one of the other things I saw was when Tendi shows Vendome's personnel log, it says personal log instead of personnel.
Personnel.
So, that's just a small spelling error. It is nice to see Vendome get that recognition. And I think it does further some of the story of you go the extra mile to get recognition. You don't just do the bare minimum, and I think very much mirrors kind of the arc which Picard went through in Tapestry, of showing that you kind of need to do those extra things and take the initiative to be seen and get what you want, and if you don't, and if you just remain passive, you'll just be a lower decker forever. So I think that
you
was
get
nice.
Stabbed.
You got to get stabbed through the heart by an
It's also very important. Yeah.
He was shooting at
Vendome was speared on the Crystal Planet, and then in this episode, Boimler It says
And
it says
Jean-Luc
stabbed him,
Jean-Luc
so.
was stabbed. That's the whole, the whole thing is that he avoided being stabbed and
Yeah.
get, Lieutenant
I
Picard.
think
And
we have figured out the system for promotions. Yeah.
you got to take a blade.
Yeah. But yeah, no, yeah, that's actually kind of cool now that you mention it. But yeah, and it is also nice that his whole bridge crew is Bolians, but they're all different type of Bolians that we've seen throughout the series. So some have like the blue ridges, like the more bluer pigmentation ridges going down there, apart from their horizontal one, and that was just really nice.
Yeah, it is cool also to see kind of Boimler having a crisis. I think that's like one of my favorite things is whenever he's like trying to sort something out, that's plaguing him. But I didn't realize how similar it was to the story until you mentioned it with Rutherford, but that's totally true. By the way, this season is Mariner calling Rutherford Ruthy or something like that for the first time. Like she's shortening his
She
name.
said, I'm coming for you, Ruthy.
Ruddy, okay, yeah, and I
Yeah,
could have sworn
maybe.
she did it in the first episode too. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's new.
Yeah, and I think we also have to talk about kind of the opening of this episode and the end of this episode with the General Chancellor Martok, whatever, in a Ferengi knockoff of Batlefs and that other word I can't remember.
Binnock. Or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
Which
That
was
lets
definitely
them
a
be
callback to the it was either like VCR or CD interactive Klingon games, which there used to be some.
Yeah,
and that was just really
and
nice.
Are there stuff? Do you guys play D&D?
Yes.
I've
Are
never
there like
played
interactive?
D&D.
Are there interactive? Are you just saying that? Are there interactive?
Are
there
not,
interactive like
not really.
video D&D type
I mean,
or like
there's
role play type
games like that, which is what the the Klingon interactive game was, and there are a lot of games like that where you do different options and then it shows a different clip, but not for pure like D&D stuff.
Oh, okay. I
wouldn't really
figured.
have
I was
that.
like, but in a future where you have a computer as advanced as like the ones that they have, where it can anticipate things and like present like tons of possible scenarios, like maybe it is a more feasible type of thing.
But I think you'd
Yeah, that
still
makes
probably
sense.
want the more personal touch.
Like an actual
But that's just me
GM.
being traditional.
I mean, it's
yeah.
kind of true now, right? You can play like a tabletop RPG with your friends, or you could go play like a PC game.
Like Zelda or something.
But it's not the same experience as when you're playing with actual person. So I think having the GM be an actual person, I think that's a tradition that people would still enjoy. But Martok is so cool. So yeah, if you do have the option of having Martok GM your game, then yeah, why not go with him?
Yeah, I guess also then we do have to wonder but then it goes into the currency and stuff of. So if these are Ferengi black market copies of this game, how do Starfleet officers acquire the booster packs with Gowron and things like that? Do they have to go to a quartermaster and like requisite it? All these questions. But that's just us being nerds.
All I gotta say
Sometimes
is free
Starfleet
cloud,
officers
free
buy
cloud.
things from Ferengi. That's like that's a thing that happens.
It is a thing that happens. It's hardly said how they get that money.
I think you could download it if you have access to free cloud. If you can get into the
I think
free
you
cloud
get
database.
an allowance if you're in Starfleet. I think they're paid for if they need to go like enjoy
My theory
If you need to
is
go out
something
to
on a planet.
My theory
non-Federation
is,
things, yeah.
Dom, my theory is that the Federation works a little bit like, like in the sense of like, every citizen of the Federation is allotted like an insane amount of credits that they can use should they travel to other places, so that they can continue to live as they know. So it's like, imagine at birth you're given a bank account that you never use at home, but only when you travel, and that bank account has like 1 trillion credits or whatever, and so there is the contingency, or there's like a plan made for like situations where you do need to use currency, but at home or in like certain locations, like Father was pointing out that maybe it's only Earth really that doesn't use currency and not necessarily the
And the rest of
Federation
the
at large.
Federation.
Was that you, right, Father? You were saying something like
Yeah.
yeah. So there's a lot of scenarios.
A lot of people don't notice that, but they only talk about humans and Earth specifically, about like not having money.
Yeah.
We know that there's banks on Boleus or Bolia or whatever. Like there's Bolian banks. So we know that there's some currency being used in the Federation, but just not on Earth. The humans don't do that, but other people
Well, yeah.
we can assume.
And there's got to
probably
be like
do.
a gigantic, like, just like there's a memory alpha, there's got to be like a gigantic blockchain that for lack of a better word, that like keeps track of all the ledgers of the galaxy.
Who
It makes
knows?
sense.
But yeah, that was, I guess, our thoughts on
That was so
the
nerdy,
least
I'm
dangerous game. No worries. I mean, we're here to talk about that kind of stuff in detail. But I guess before we round this off, we have Star Trek Day. So Hale, do you have the like what's happening up?
I do. I have it pulled
yes.
up here.
So talk about Star Trek Day and what we might see in 4 days' time.
So our hosts are going to be Tawny Newsome and Paul F. Tompkins, who you know from Lower Decks, but also from hosting the official podcast of the Star Trek
Pod Directive.
universe. The Pod Directive, that's right.
Which is very good. I recommend you watching. I recommend you listen to that because it's really good. Especially they get people like Ben Stiller on, and he's a massive TOS fan, and it's just really weird to.
And Tawny is such a fan.
Yes.
Tawny Newsome is a huge Star Trek fan.
Yeah, huge.
She's centered more around the TNG era, like myself, but yeah, she loves Star Trek.
DS9 is her favorite. DS9 is her favorite. She grew up watching DS9 with her dad. Don't take that away from me, because I'm the only person who says Deep Space Nine was like.
Sorry, I said
their
TNG era. I said TNG era, but you're absolutely right. She's said exactly what Father said. But yeah, so they'll be hosting. So the festivities start at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, 9 p.m. British Standard Time. Right? Did I get all those times right? Oh, and one more Central. That's going to be at 2 p.m. Central. No, 8 p.m. Sorry, 8 p.m.
Yeah, 8 p.m.
8 p.m. British Standard Time.
Yes.
Sorry. And we'll be streaming here on Trek Central.
Yes, that will probably be me and Starfleet Boy. Just reacting to the live stream. Obviously, compared to San Diego Comic-Con, there will be a live stream for the event, an official one. So we'll be watching that in the background. And if you want to join us to watch that or see our reactions to, oh my god, Tasha Yar's in this Picard trailer, then yeah, you can come and join us on the Trek Central channel to talk about all that stuff with us and fellow people in the chat. But yes,
the next segment.
And that's streaming on Paramount Plus, right? Or it will be on YouTube also.
I guess it'll be on YouTube as well.
I assumed it was going to be on YouTube. I didn't know it was going to be on Paramount Plus, but I assume that might be a place where it is.
I think it's going to be on both. I bet they do both, because they normally put that stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
In the past, I have seen it. I think the last one was on both, but I'm not sure about the first or the one before that. But after the hosts kick it off, we're gonna have Star Trek Picard segment, where the cast will discuss the upcoming final season, or send-off season, as I like to call it. And then the next segment is going to be Star Trek Discovery. Wilson Cruz gives an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at Star Trek Discovery set, along with some can't-miss cast run-ins.
So they are filming Season 5 at the minute, I believe. So they probably just don't have anything to show us for this Star Trek Day. So they'll just be giving us a tour and talking about, oh my god, you can't wait to see what's going to happen in Season 5. And, just your general stuff without actually showing anything. But yeah.
And then in the next segment after that will be the Star Trek Lower Decks segment, in which the Lower Decks voice cast members discuss the series and what's to come this season. So just kind of like giving us more hype, I guess, for the rest of the season and like teasing and stuff like that. So after that, we get the Star Trek Prodigy segment. And in this one, the voice cast members will discuss the series along with some special reveals, is what
Yes.
the little.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but we still don't have a release date for the second half of season 1, right?
Yeah,
right. They only say
they said late.
2022.
2022,
We're
yeah.
starting to run out of 2022. So I think it might be coming back in October, though. That was when they premiered.
It'll be whenever
last year was in October.
Lower Decks finishes. Because I doubt there'll be an overlap. But yeah.
I think they might
then they're
overlap 1 week, like how
they
they
have
put
been doing that this year.
Oh, okay.
how they put the Strange New Worlds premiere on top of the Picard finale.
Yes.
And then the next segment will be a Nichelle Nichols tribute. So it says, watch a special tribute honoring the late actress Nichelle Nichols and her impact and influence. So that sounds really cool. I'm really excited that they're going to do that because Nichelle Nichols deserves all the tributes and praises. She was amazing. Yes. And then they're going to finish with a Strange New Worlds panel. And it says the stars of Star Trek Strange New Worlds chat about the new series and tease what's ahead. So there you have it. That's going to be Star Trek Day.
Yes, and on not only do we have Tawny Newsome and Paul F. Tompkins hosting it, but there is also Mary Chieffo and Jackie Cox, if I believe. You can correct me.
Oh yeah, and
yes,
there's also Reggie Watts is also
and Reggie Watts as musical stuff, which is an interesting choice.
So that's pretty cool.
So
I'm very excited.
We'll see what that means. Hopefully, it means a upbeat rendition of Faith of the Heart by Reggie Watts. Yes, one can wish.
Oh my gosh, this is my chance. Can I tell everyone what Fathery doesn't want to do, but that I really want him to do, Dom?
I mean, if Fathery consents you to say that, then yes.
Go ahead.
So Fathery absolutely does not want to sing Faith of the Heart. It's his least favorite song, apparently ever, not just like in Star Trek. So he doesn't want to sing that. But he's set up a goal. I don't know. He must have done it when he was not in his right mind. But if Tex Trek reaches 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, he'll sing it live on Tex Trek for everyone. But if it doesn't, if it goes past midnight and it reaches 1,000 subscribers in the new year, he's off the hook and doesn't have to sing it. I want him to be on the hook. So if everyone could go and subscribe, yes.
That would be great. I think also if you don't meet that goal, you can always just do a Bajoran dirge instead.
Okay. Yeah, if we don't hit 1,000, I'll do a Bajoran dirge.
There we go. We'll try and find lyrics for that. So it seems like Star Trek Day will be really good this year and have a lot of things we cannot wait to see. So make sure to either watch us here react to it or watch it yourself in your own comfort when it releases. When it comes out in 4 days on the 8th of September at the times which I've already forgotten, but 8 p.m. British time and
3 p.m.
Eastern and
2 p.m. Central and noon Pacific.
Yes, there we go. So yes, I think that wraps us up for this stream. So thank you everyone for joining us to discuss Star Trek Las Vegas episodes 1 and 2 of season 3 of Lower Decks, and just a little recap of what we should expect at Star Trek Day. So thank you very much for my other co-hosts. Fathery, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Starfleet Boy as well.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun, and thank you to the Trek Central audience.
Yes, thank you very much for being here. And I've been Commander Dom, and as always, live long and prosper.